FLUF World is so much more than a simple NFT profile picture collection. Together with the Futureverse Ecosystem, it involves dozens of projects and hundreds of employees, all striving towards a common goal, providing infrastructure, tools and services, powering a new Web3 economy while enabling the open Metaverse. This video is the culmination of hundreds of hours of research and is a compilation of interviews from ecosystem leaders. It's broken down into 12 chapters, timestamped for your convenience. It covers 4 key NFT collections: FLUFs, the Party Bears, Thingies and Burrows, the Altered State Machine and Non-Fungible Intelligence, the Hume Collective and the Rise of the Metastar, wallet and communications provided by SYLO and The Seekers, charitable giving via the Futureverse Foundation, plus a whole bunch more, but it all begins with McDonald and Centrality. So smash that like button and let's get into it.
What is the metaverse? Well, the metaverse is just a more immersive internet space in the future. What is encompassed in that? Well, it's the whole economy. So it's not just this money Legos thing that crypto is really kind of about. It's actually what is culture, it's what is entertainment, it's what is media, it's what is work, it's what is asset ownership. Like all of those things that encompass our economy today are the metaverse in the future.
So I didn't actually finish uni. I did very well at high school. I just got bored with it. I finished my school C when I was like 14. As a result of that, I kind of just got into the workforce. By the time my friends graduated university, I was interviewing them for jobs. So it was kind of like a different path for me. And I think that on-the-job learning has really been useful for me those early days and working for other people into running my own business, because I got to do everything, digging trenches for laying cables and telecommunications. So I've done from the ground literally up.
So I've had kind of a history of working at pretty much every kind of job you can have in tech. And when I got out into Founderland, I found that there was kind of these big problems. I like solving problems with getting, the startups off the ground, and this chicken and egg problem around trying to get customers, or if you've got a two-sided marketplace, getting those going at the same time, and all these kind of issues I'd kind of experienced myself. So I decided to try and fix that and started this venture business, Centrality. And we have this thesis, 2 kind of strong bits to the thesis has been around connected ventures, which is we invest in and incubate and accelerate companies that bring something to the rest of the portfolio that helps them become more successful. So we've had this very kind of connected ecosystem approach deliberately from day one.
And so how could you get different people who are working on different things to work together to grow each other? That was kind of the thesis of Centrality. And that's what Web3 is about. It's about collaboration, co-creation, open innovation.
And then if you think about what the metaverse is, it's the collection of interoperable content and applications that are owned by users and communities. In order to make the idea or the meme of the metaverse come alive, you need to have a bunch of different things that interact with each other. And 2 was to increase end user adoption in decentralized systems. So when we kind of started this in 2016, it was not a great user experience for many people to be able to try and get into this space.
One of the things about getting in on this relatively early is that nothing exists. So it's like, well, what do you do when you're trying to solve a problem and nothing exists? Oh, we've got to build a company that does that thing, or we've got to invest in a company that does that thing, or we've got to find a founder who has a vision for fixing that problem and get behind them. By osmosis, ended up with all of these ingredients of how to build the metaverse. So we've got SYLO as a communications protocol. We've got Centrality to connect and bridge Web3 with the physical world. We've got ASM, we've got FLUF World, we've got SensNet itself. I've created 5 companies that are worth over $100 million each in the last 5 years. So there's a lot going on in my life.
So we started to invest in and work with companies who were going to make that easier, right from kind of infrastructure through to protocols through to applications. So now across, I think, the 3 funds, we have something close to 60 portfolio companies that are doing that kind of thing. But the real supercharging of that, I think, kind of happened when NFTs started to take off.
When NFTs started to get some traction, we were like, okay, this is the killer app for consumers because it's content. It's not some nerdy DeFi thing, even though DeFi is super cool. Most people don't even know how money works between their banks, let alone how this new version of the internet money could work. but getting them engaged around content was something that was a really powerful moment. And so when we looked at that, we're like, well, what does this look like in the future? Like, what is the metaverse that everyone imagines there to be? And how can we build an architecture of technology, of storytelling, of world building, of content that gets people to that point of experiencing what they imagine the metaverse to be?
It's really become the user experience for the blockchain world. And it's something that consumers have been much easier to get their heads around, which is where we get to non-fungible labs.
Aaron and I invested some money into two really brilliant young Kiwis, Alex Smaler and Jesse Metcalf. And they delivered beyond like what you could imagine. And this kind of brings us back to maybe why we're even here. The creative power that is sitting in New Zealand right now that NFTs and this environment can unlock is significant.
Non-Fungible Labs was started as a studio to accelerate ideas into this metaverse space and bring exciting new content formats, as well as create a better metaverse experience to kind of lift the game a little bit from what we've seen before and deliver the vision that everyone kind of has in their mind about how this space can be an engaging and interactive format.
In 2017, Aaron McDonald made a very insightful observation. In New Zealand, we had about 20 of these companies that were building blockchain technology, and none of them were collaborating on the core underlying technology, which is always the same. So he collected all of these 20 entities up. He ICO'd it.
You raised, $100 million earlier in the year in just 6 minutes.
And also, and this is crazy, in kind of December 2017, they were smart enough to move a whole bunch of that into USD, which meant that during crypto winter, Aaron continued to spend investing $40 million in the last 3 years into blockchain technology in these different areas: DeFi, logistics, identity, payments, ticketing, you name it. There are entities in our ecosystem that have been building this technology for 5 years.
You have to start with building a strong foundation around lore and stories. Everything in the world that's great comes from stories. And great stories create great things. And so we've been really deliberate about making sure that the base layer of everything we have has a great story. What does a great story need? It needs great characters. You imagine a story being built around one character. It would be a very dull thing to read and engage with. And so the next layer you have to build on top of stories is characters, right? And so building out a layer of characters that can be part of the story is a really important foundational step. And then you go into content that exists within those stories and interacts with those characters. And then you go into spaces that those characters exist inside of and those stories exist inside of. And then you can go into activities that happen in those spaces. And then you can go into games. So that's kind of a progression for creating a metaverse that I think is a sustainable one and one that can be done organically with a community. And what we would normally see as consumers is the end product of that. In the Web 2 paradigm, you would see a game come out or a World of Warcraft or whatever it happens to be. You would consume the end product with all of that stuff already inside of it. But with Web 3, we see this happening from inside the engine. And the community gets to be part of that journey as it's going along. And so in our ecosystem, we've got this really deep story thread that sits behind everything. And what people have been seeing is the content and character layers starting to pop up from that story. So we have the FLUFs, which were introduced first to the world, and they kind of started the story and the lore. And then from there, we've built out party bears, we've got the Thingies, we've got the Seekers, we've got the altered state machine, we've got a layer of content that sits within each of these character sets. So you've got the sounds and scenes, you've got the eggs. So all these little bits kind of stack up together to provide a rich ecosystem of things that users can interact with and build communities around. And also a system for introducing collaborations and connectivity with the rest of the metaverse that makes your assets alive. And I think if you look at FLUF as the first asset that came out, we were really deliberate about creating something that was a multimedia dynamic asset that could be alive and that had a personality. You know, when we brought music into this collection, it was so that your avatar could feel like it had a soul. Music's very good at doing that with something that's an inanimate object. You imagine a movie that didn't have a soundtrack, it'd be pretty shitty. And then kind of enabling the technology so that users can change that over time. And so your asset now can evolve with the cultural moment of the community. You know, when Angelbaby performs on stage at FLUF House, that moment for those people now can become part of their asset. That can be an alive and living thing.
FLUF World collection. This one's taken the NFT marketplace by storm. It's up roughly 20x from its mint price.
FLUFs minted in early August. It was the biggest minting event in NFT history at the time. The NFTs were the first of their kind, a layered NFT, actually 3 NFTs, the background, the music, the avatar, and owners got full commercial rights, revolutionary, and it just skyrocketed.
Anyone that owns a FLUF, to log into a site, you can separate the music, the background, and the bunny, and then buy a different background and different music for it.
From the outset, we thought about FLUF World as being something more than just an avatar, and kind of tried to imagine what would a metaverse character need to be able to do to exist in this kind of movement of culture over time. You see a lot of projects that come out and they're relevant culturally at that point in time, but culture evolves and things change. And I think one of the really important decisions the team made was to make FLUF World's architecture these dynamic NFTs where you can come in and over time evolve the character and place it in a cultural setting that changes over time.
One of the great things about the background scene swap is it immediately allows a community of artists to come in and just do a background, which may lead to them creating a space in the metaverse that is representative of that background, and being able to break it down into small components that they can contribute to.
An item of clothing or a song or these micro bits of content that kind of can exist within the context of other collections, I think is a really important thing.
The backgrounds that you can see behind your FLUF, many of them are actually real 3D environments that we've been creating, and one day your FLUF will be able to go there. The craziest thing is Aaron and I get to be in these meetings all the time with the studio executives, and we explain that we just made 10,000 of these, random characters. People bought them, and then now they can rename them and build a backstory. They're creating families, bands. They're then going out and finding 3D artists to animate their characters, build music for their characters. And when you're talking to someone like a Disney studio exec, where they've kind of built this thing from the top down, and you realize we now have, 3,500 hyper creative people who are then linking in other creatives. That's a pretty unstoppable force, and it's going to flip a lot of things, not just the entertainment industry.
We've built a system that we think will mean you never have to sell your FLUF. Every trait counts. This idea that every single FLUF with every single trait, no matter how kind of strange or obscure, every single trait counts. Point being, there are 268 traits. There's a couple of years of exciting trait drops. Each FLUF has between 7 and 14 traits. So if you've got a 14 trait FLUF, you're going to get 14 trait drops at least. And that's there for a reason, in order to build liquidity for people without them having to sell their FLUF. We could see the problem with something like Bored Ape, where you've got now $250,000 NFT, and you've got one, and you're in this amazing community. But if you sell it, you're out of the community. The liquidity's gone, right?
Does FLUF World have a purpose?
Well, yeah, it does, for a number of purposes. The first one is to connect creatives to their communities, to make it easier for creatives to build great art and or music, and for us to introduce that into communities. Sustainability is a big part of our, we've got 4 pillars, and they are innovation, creativity, sustainability, and inclusion. And inclusion is really important. If we build the metaverse with the current metaverse creatives, it's going to be a really bland reflection of the real world, because there are just no indigenous creators that are being empowered to build that metaverse with us. And so FLUF World has a real passion about introducing indigenous cultures, marginalized cultures into the metaverse creation process, so that when you get into the metaverse, you're like, wow, this is rich.
Already had the FLUFs, and then you're like, all right, well, let's make the party bears. So like, why party bears?
We got like 1,000 emails and people reaching out to us. And then one of them just had this insane video. This party bear is DJing in front of a stadium and turns around and smiles, and it was on this crazy track. And it turned out it was these guys from BoJack Horseman and Robot Chicken. So they're like full pedigree animation studio. We're creating a world. We need more than just one character. And we started collaborating on them creating the party bears. They built them out.
We are becoming one company. FLUF World is acquiring all of Party Bears and Shadows Interactive and all the content we've been working on over the last 3-4 years. So we're going into their team.
They are music inclined. So we've got 30 of the world's biggest DJs, like Disclosure, Dylan Francis, I mentioned them all, that are making music for them. We really abandoned absolute rarity and went with a thing called dynamic rarity with these things. The ability to adjust your avatar's rarity based on the rarity of its components, the background, the music, the clothing. It's how the real world works, right?
So what's a party pack, Aaron?
Yeah, so party pack's everything you need a party in the metaverse. We're here to kind of make this a fun space. And as you know, FLUF World's been very focused on how do we change the game in terms of multimedia content in the metaverse space and reimagine how NFTs can be used to create utility and fun in those spaces, make it a game. So party packs are a device that allows us to collaborate with artists around the world, musicians around the world, content creators around the world, to create new activations for your avatars in those world spaces. So party packs contain some music, somewhere to be when you're having this party, something to wear when you're at the party, some groovy dance moves to get down to. So all the things that would make a party space fun, they come inside a party pack. But what it really does is allows us to go hard in terms of collaborations in a way that maybe other collections find it difficult to do, because with FLUF World, you can infuse this content into your own avatar and you can make it part of that movement. And so it can change over time and evolve over time and connect to those other communities. So when an artist comes in, it's not just a promotional tweet or something like that. It's actually kind of joining our community in a metaphysical way.
We're very excited to announce that in this first party pack, we'll also be including disclosure.
So they're going to produce the track for the party pack in Discord with us.
I am about to, live on this stream, make a track for the community for the party packs. I've got an idea of what I want to do, and I mean 120 BPM for me is like a good place. That's pretty housey anyway. I've spent all morning downloading basically like rabbit sound effects.
So when you buy this, you buy a downloadable STEM pack. And if you don't want the kazoo, you can just axe a kazoo. You might want to make it all kazoo. That sense of being able to customize your own version and like share with your friends your own version of Run Little Rabbit is just fucking next level. While this podcast has been going on, I've had amazing musicians that are already working with us, DJs, singers, going, I want to lay down a vocal track over this.
What the metaverse is about. It's this kind of like very immersive, community-driven co-creation. So the vibe is going to be exactly that.
It's just that sense of like knowing that they're actually just a part of the community. That's the whole point. Yeah. In your midst right now, across the board, and it happens all the time, we go, oh, that's a Grammy-nominated artist just like hanging out in the Discord.
Altered State Machine is a company that me and Aaron founded as a concept that we'd been working on for a while around the gamification of machine learning. Heading up the company Altered State Machine, which is the protocol for what we call non-fungible intelligence.
Altered State Machine is bringing you a first-of-its-kind protocol for non-fungible intelligence. Let your NFTs come to life with artificial intelligence and machine learning.
One of the most important technologies that humanity has ever invented. And basically what that means is we're creating a world where the value created by AI flows back to its contributors.
Essentially what ASM is it's a decentralized protocol that allows for the creation, training, and trading of AI agents that you own via an NFT. We can own our own AI agents, have proof of ownership of it via NFTs in the blockchain, and be able to enhance the value of that AI agent based off of how we interact with it and how we train, and all of that is confirmed on the blockchain.
And the Altered State Machine is a new protocol, a new primitive. The two things that Altered State Machine has kind of innovated around are, firstly, a way to fingerprint the evolution in training an artificial intelligence model so that you can prove that you own it with an NFT.
ASM agents have two parts, a form and a brain. Forms are visual representations of the AI. A form could be many things, such as a 2D image, a 3D model,
prepare for total assimilation,
an oral experience, a voice agent,
thank you for calling,
or anything else that serves as a visual depiction of your AI. An agent's form and brain are independently changeable. Both can be separately upgraded, traded, or replaced.
And so you can now connect intelligence to everything that exists in the blockchain space, DeFi, the metaverse, games, all of those kinds of things. And then the second part of the primitive is a way to inject a personality into an NFT. And so people might kind of be familiar with traits in their NFTs. Well, we've found a way to make traits map to the way that machine learning models approach learning about a task.
You could think of the genome matrix as the DNA of the brain, randomly generated and providing the inherent skills and weaknesses the brain is minted with. It's visualized as a heat map where different regions represent different traits. Like DNA, the genome matrix of a brain is permanent. It doesn't change, even with training and experience. The genome matrix is interpreted differently in each environment. For instance, let's look at this region over here, very peaky and lush. In the AFA environment, this region might map to speed. In another environment, one that trades various cryptocurrencies, this same region could map to responsiveness to market changes. And in another environment, maybe a metaverse music experience, this region could map to beats per minute.
If you think about like games, you might come across things in typical game characters like strength or speed or agility or intelligence, like these kind of traits that we know about game characters. Well, we can put those into the NFT. And so now we can kind of mint these traits into NFTs, and then they become these personalities in these games. And you get this really great richness of experience in the game because all these different strategies evolve, kind of like how humans work. We have individual DNA. When we approach a situation, we go about learning about those environments in different ways. And so we can force that same thing to happen inside of the machine models. One interesting side effect of the protocol that we discovered after we started building it is you get this kind of history of learning. And so as you go and go along the journey, you can save these different memories about how it learned to deal with a certain task at a certain time. And then what you can do from that is clone them at those different points.
A memory tree is specific to each new environment, meaning that a brain will develop a new memory tree for each environment it is interacted with. The memory tree holds tactical and learned strategies from training in gyms or from experience, and it saves these changes as unique versions. Let's say your brain is working for you as a chatbot that provides customer service. You may find that your brain was performing better 2 weeks ago. With the memory tree, you can simply restore a version of the brain from that time. The memory tree is equivalent to education, training, and experience.
So if you become a really good trainer and you train your AI player to play really well, you could go back and sell like the 3/4 good version cloned of your NFT to someone else. So they don't have to start from the bottom. They can kind of get like 75% of your experience and then try and learn the rest from there.
Wondering how the genome matrix and memory tree work together? Here's an analogy. Many consider Michael Jordan to be the best basketball player of all time. His dominance was the result of dedicated training and work ethic, like growing and perfecting his basketball memory tree. His success was likely aided by inherent traits that he was born with, such as height, power, and vertical leap, i.e. a particularly lucky genome matrix for someone who plays basketball. A genome matrix in an ASM brain works the same way. Each brain will have unique traits and base values best suited for particular environments, naturally excelling at certain tasks. The relationship of the genome matrix and memory tree gets a bit more fun in team environments such as AFA. Let's say you mint the Cristiano Ronaldo of AFA. Even Ronaldo can't win FIFA championships all by himself. Team environments on the ASM protocol are the same. Think about brains that inherit traits to make them naturally talented strikers. They're still only 1/4 of a team. Each agent will bring their own complementary skills and experiences to the table, and it's up to you to form, train, and optimize your team.
There's kind of 3 types of mechanics that we see. So the first one we talked about, where it's kind of 2 teams versing each other in a football match, that would be what we'd call like an agent versus agent mechanic. So these are kind of games where you're just AIs playing against AIs. There are 2 other kinds. One's called a companion agent, and that might be someone who kind of helps you in a metaverse, like a non-playing character in a game, like a quest giver or a vendor or a historian that's telling you about the lore of a place. The curation of what that is comes down to the creator of the agent. So they'll want a certain experience in that space. And that could be done by a person, or it could be done through DAO mechanics and owned by a guild or a protocol. What will emerge in the metaverse is the ability for people to bring their own content. So I can bring my own avatar, for example, right? Or my own sword or whatever it happens to be to those worlds. Well, what they lack is this kind of richness of experience, which comes from normal games where they have all these pre-programmed agents, right? So how do you get kind of community creativity to create that same richness? Well, we can do that through these non-playing agents and give the possibility for individuals to import intelligence into those worlds as well. And so that's one kind of category. And so that would be like a curated thing. I want my bot to, greet people in my Decentraland space and give them a good time. The other kind is this idea of digital twins, which is you can teach an agent to behave like you or respond in ways that you might respond. And so we've had some really great chats with, let's say, DJs, right? You could teach a DJ agent to play like you would play a set by having it watch how you play a set. And by watch, we mean like look at the data, right? You train it, you kind of get it to the level where you think it's playing your vibe. And now you can clone yourself in a digital way and then sell your copy of yourself to your fans, and they can have your virtual twin show up and play in your live space.
That's amazing. So how do you train them? I know you talk about gyms.
So the gyms are sort of representations of the environment that you're going to see them play in. You basically send them to a stripped down version of that that can run in hypertime. So at 20 times speed across, 10 different arenas at the same time, where they'll very quickly learn how to do something and then pop out the other end a whole lot more experienced.
And for users, all they're going to have to do is click a button, click train, and then the application goes and puts it in this hyperspeed environment where it can learn like faster than real time.
Our vision really is to create a world where the value of AI flows back to everybody. The metaverse is coming. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but we do know that it's going to be persistent, always on, and deeply immersive. And there can only be so many humans in the metaverse space at any one time, but all of us are going to have agents who represent us in this crazy future. If we don't have the tools to create, train and trade our own AIs, then we're just going to be renting them off the big tech companies forever. What we're trying to do is create these fundamental tools for everyone to create, train and trade their own AIs. It's philosophically important everywhere, because if you have 1,000 developers making the decisions about how AI is implemented in these future spaces, which humanity is going to spend so much time in, then you fail to capture the full human thought and imagination. And instead, if anyone and everyone can train their own AI, then we get the full diversity of human thought going into those individual AIs. We don't know what that will look like, but we know it will be better than just a few people training those AIs. We have this little catchphrase that we like to say, which is, we want to give people the tools to create an AI that's fun, interesting, or valuable for them. Fun, it might be in a game application. Interesting, they might play around with it to make art. Or valuable, they might get it to compete and win or trade. We want to open up the broadest possible number of avenues for a decentralized AI and give everyone the tools to be able to store them. And the reason we use NFTs, of course, is that if we attach that AI to the NFT, then the value of that NFT increases with the value of the AI.
If you've created something valuable, whether it be in the context of a game, say you've trained the greatest virtual boxer in the world, and you don't want to play that game anymore, but you've put a lot of time and effort into creating that asset, you can go and natively trade that. Then somebody could pick that up and continue the story of that character within that environment. Also interruptible. If somebody creates an environment for boxing inside their world, you could take that asset and that AI and allow it to perform in another world.
The platform that we're building, it's a big vision. The use cases for it are endless, and they're not only limited to gaming. We need to create the tools for ownability, composability, and tradability of these AI models, and they're going to be implemented in hundreds of different ways. You don't build a successful, scalable, open platform by just trying to build the platform without real-world use cases. Instead, you take some really cool examples like, hey, I want to create an AI soccer game like we're creating for AFA, or I want to create an AI boxer, which is a very one-on-one, really classic matchup of AIs, like the game we're doing for Muhammad Ali called The Next Legends. And you create those games, and then from those learnings, you actually help use that to enhance your platform. So we're building our own experiences in partnership with our IP partners and our early adopters, some of whom are big brands like the aforementioned Muhammad Ali, and we've got a couple of other massive globe-spanning brands that I'm desperate to, I really want to say it, but I really can't. But I'll just say that in the sports space, we wanted to do a home arena for the AFA All-Stars family, like the core home arena, and in the film movie space, and it's very, very exciting. And with those partners, we're building out these big experiences that are going to help prove more of the points that we are working on. And at the same time, we're building with Web3 partners. So we are working with Crypto Walkers and with a couple of other projects who we're announcing very, very shortly. And getting integrations happening or uses of the technology happening at the really recognizable, popular consumer brand level, and also with really cool Web3 projects that we know and love, people who are working directly in our space. From all of this, we're taking the learnings from that, and we're using them to enhance our product platform and make that available and scalable for every experience builder, across from gaming right out into any other metaverse use case.
To be released open source and governed by the DAO, Altered State Machine DAO.
The Thingies is, I think, like one of the craziest things we've done. These 3D animated rigged furry spiders, they are like a mind trip, because what we did was we
trained an AI on some of the best art as 10,000 pieces of art throughout history. And then it created 10,000 new pieces of unique art. We layered those as the fur texture of the thingy itself.
So each avatar fur pattern is a piece of art that has been transferred from this kind of generative art into the thingy itself. So you've got 10,000 individually painted avatars. Each one of the thingies is also an altered state machine. They're an AI painter themselves. So we've got this kind of artception going on where this AI painted these things, and they are then AIs themselves that paint things that people can go and take and put into the metaverse. So you have 10,000 artists out there, you know, individual AI artists creating their own generative art. Two things that impact the art. One is the backpacks they're wearing. So each backpack forms a class of art. And two is the fur pattern. So we take that fur pattern and use it to create a brain. And what the brain is giving that particular thingy its own perception of the world. So when you ask that same string of questions that you brought up earlier to thingy number 0 and thingy number 1, they will draw a different picture because they see the world differently.
So what you might have noticed is that most of the thingies ended up with a painting in their background that didn't match their fur. So there might be something coming down the line for you to play with to try and match them and see what happens there.
The first one there is from Midjourney, which is like a closed source, centralized AI that essentially makes digital art. And what we've been building, if you scroll down, is a decentralized version, which is powered by the Altered State Machine protocol. And what Altered State Machine does is allows NFTs to own individual AI agents and for the user to kind of be in control of that AI. And so within FLUF World, we created these 3D spiders that are actually AI artists. And so the next version of the user interface that rolls out in the underground for the thingies will allow users to go and have their 3D spider create art like this and interact with their own AI. The next version, which we have in the product development, and I've seen already, creates objects, so 3D objects, not just art. And the next version of that is creating spaces, so you can create world spaces with your AI.
Wow, incredible.
SYLO is a 5-6 year project to develop an independent distributed node mesh communications network. So think WhatsApp meets Telegram meets MetaMask. The ability on there to create your own micro communities, distributed, transfer assets. It's pretty amazing. It's fully functional, SYLO. They launched a collection of 50,000 of these things, all unique, 100% unique. Each one of them has a little backpack they can go and collect things around the metaverse in. Each one of them is actually a node in the network, so you can activate it, and that activates your seeker as a node in this distributed network. Aaron McDonald designed this really cool mechanic where, well before the current Goblin Town, we have Goblin Town in our lore. The goblins would start destroying and collecting seekers, starting with the rarest and turning them into portals. It's a deep bit of lore that you need to read. It encouraged people to buy them before they got destroyed. So if no one had bought them, the goblins would have destroyed them all.
Seekers are metaverse explorers. There's quite a few of them, 47,895 that are still kicking about. But the idea is that these guys have been out and about for numerous years, exploring, connecting, popping into other planets. Because of their time they've spent there, they've taken on traits and have been upgraded based on the environments they've been living in.
A collection of metaverse-ready robots powering communications and trade right throughout the open metaverse. Have a foundational project built a decentralized communications infrastructure, and their role is to move around the metaverse, finding really interesting worlds and projects and facilitating communication between those to help build a collective as opposed to these walled gardens trying to build everything themselves. And these little guys, they're functional PFPs. They're really, really interesting, relatable characters, but they also have very deep roots into technical infrastructure that we're pushing out.
As the Seekers themselves were built as part of the story as a functioning network themselves, so they are all interconnected with this ability to communicate with each other. Obviously, with close to 50,000 of them, that's a pretty vast network that's been spreading out across the metaverse, and as they visit worlds and connect with worlds and welcome worlds into what we're calling the Found, which is this growing community of related projects with like-minded ideas around the open metaverse and decentralization and this whole kind of open Web3. They then act as, or they provide a bridge for those communities to tap into their intrinsic network. So therefore connecting all of the digital worlds, cross-chain, cross-metaverse, the embodiment of connection and openness.
Hume is a metaverse record label that's creating music-driven metastars for the metaverse.
There is an incredible counterculture arising now of people, I would say like myself, and other artists, writers, producers who are recognizing that there's an opportunity to take back the power and have ownership and be a part of a new Web3 structure and system that allows artists to not only express themselves, but make the money they deserve. So there's like a fuck you community rising up that is pretty badass, I think. But from a macro level, I'm experiencing a majority of the super, super high level people in the music industry. It has a similar tone to like 1999, where it's like, Napster is not really a thing. Streaming's just a fad. It's going to go away. And then they all get like smacked in the face a few years later.
I can help you on the music side. David immediately reached out and connected with G Money and some of the most forward-thinking people in the NFT Web3 space.
Welcome to Admit One with G Money. Today we have the founders of Hume, a Web3 label and entertainment company born in the metaverse. With backgrounds in producing for Selena Gomez and crafting media and product strategy for brands like the NFL and Comcast NBC, they dove into Web3 with the intent to reshape what it means to be an artist, as well as a fan and entertainment.
And put together a team so that we could start the Hume Collective, which is a Web3 record label and roster of metastars built to exist and grow in this ever-changing landscape.
The power of no is pretty incredible when you believe in something deeply. And eventually we just say no to every single deal. That was definitely tough, because I did say to David at one point, like, David, you realize how few people get offered a record deal, let alone for a virtual artist. I actually think we would be the first. This is in 2019. You know, like, there's not a lot of those deals offered, and there are tens of thousands of artists who are vying for those deals. But we said no a lot. I'm very, very glad we did.
I'm not only an investor, I'm also an advisor in Hume.
They raised on a value of $80 million after like 6 months working on this crazy project.
The other thing with all of this is the way all of this money is collected is archaic. It's so many different systems. It's not like there's just like one platform and that collects all of the money from radio and television, et cetera, et cetera. So when you think about music as NFTs, that can change everything. You have everything that's provably in one place. And also, you now have a new opportunity to bring fans closer to artists in a way that we never have before. So Hume had two aspects that were incredibly exciting, which was, one, we get to be a part of every single aspect of that artist. For me, has been a dream my whole life. Like, that's what you want, right? You want to be a part of the songs, the production, the story, the videos, the clothing, the concerts, the TV shows, the NFTs, and see that there is an opportunity to build what we believe will be the future of a fan to artist NFT ecosystem. And the last piece I'll add is to find a way for Hume to own the music, but also pay songwriters and producers well. Every songwriter or producer who works with Angelbaby and works with us gets paid a fee for their time that day. The reason we can do that is because we are a part of all of the revenue.
And our first metastar, people used to call them virtual artists, is Angelbaby.
The world just seems so small behind me. What a view from the What a view from the
A metastar is a virtual artist that is born in the metaverse. They are often part of a existing NFT community or avatar world versus just being created from scratch as an imaginary character. So in the case of Angelbaby, they are from FLUF World, and you could say Angelbaby is the most famous FLUF artist. And metastars also, as much as they can play and perform in the metaverse, they are born from the metaverse, they can also play in our world, take photos in our world, be on social media, in much the same way as that a modern human artist would be.
Holy shit, you guys. I just got this message from my friends in the future, I think. I'm not really sure. Look at this. All right, I know you can't see this that well. I'll post this in the Discord. Go check it out.
Those virtual artists will then have TV shows and have cooking products and everything that you can possibly imagine.
Do you mind if I ask Angelbaby a few questions?
Yo, what's up? It's Angelbaby.
Hey, Angelbaby, I've got a few questions for you. First off, where are you from?
Listen, I don't do a lot of interviews. It's good to meet you, though, sir. I'm from the future. Last I was there was the year 3045. So much to say, but right now it's too dangerous. That's all you need to know. I like all music. And in some ways, I'm inspired not just by music itself or specific artists, but the culture around the music. I'm into anything that pushes a line and has a loud-ass voice.
I don't even know if you think about the metaverse.
Of course I think about the metaverse. In my time, the metaverse is closed. For hundreds of years, I was censored, and it was illegal for me to express myself. Imagine a world where billions of people are bound by a closed metaverse with no freedom of speech, no freedom to create, no freedom to build. It's essential that we keep the metaverse open and fight the powers that are trying to close it.
David and Jay, thanks for bringing Angelbaby into the mix. Let's get back to you guys. What kinds of shows has Angelbaby done so far?
So Angel's first performance was at Art Basel, and Angel played the first show as a metastar live from the metaverse.
And you know we're gonna change the future. You know we're gonna do it different. You know we're gonna keep this metaverse open. It's my first song with the Hume Collective, NFT. It's a song about doing whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want. It's a song about community. It's a song for you. Bunnies up.
tonight. We're smoking that THC to the morning light. Ain't going to BED. We'll stay awake 'cause we're feeling great. Giving NFT. No fucks tonight. No fucks tonight.
It's a yacht club pop-up, need a couple A's just to walk up. Vodka, drinking in the sandbox, doctor. Think I just found the 8 chakra. NFT, little bitch is my mantra. I ain't giving no fucks, I'm not licking no nuts. Yes, I want to, I'm more fun when I'm drunk. Snoop Dogg rolling up blunts. Now let's run, I'm a bad, bad bunny. So rare, so lucky, don't need your money. I got hella eyes on me, I'm the real Slim Shady. Girl, I'm Angel Baby, no fucks tonight, 'cause we going crazy.
So you guys are kind of like a Metaverse record label we talked about. What's different about how you release music on Hume versus a standard record label? We talked about the live shows. We talked about the signing of Metastars. What about the releases?
I would even start with saying the way music gets released is more than just like it's getting released and now it's on a place where you go listen to it. One of Angelbaby's first releases was actually an airdrop, which is when you send NFTs to people's wallets for free of one of these FLUF World sounds of their own song. So even the way we think about releasing music has multiple dimensions to it, as opposed to like, okay, the song's gonna come out, it's gonna be on Spotify, it's going to be here, it's going to be here. It's really about like, how do we create a world with this music? How do we have different forms of digital representation of this song or of this piece that people can connect to and use as a way of showing their relationship to the artist?
The way that Metastars release music and the way that Angel releases music is a 3-dimensional experience. Like, this is what music videos did for music in the 80s and 90s. This new world of NFT and Web3 music releases, especially the way that we see it, is the next iteration of that.
See you on the other side. You on the other side. See you on the other side. You on the other side. See you on the other side. You on the other side.
Unless you're waiting on the other side. But also, I think the way people relate to music and what a NFT that's connected to music represents is going to be very different than anything we've had before, because it's going to represent potentially your ability to be part of an artist's career. So maybe that NFT, which is part of the song, comes with voting rights to vote on future singles or artwork. Like, it can really open, if we think of like Web3 and these NFTs being a verifiable way of gaining access, you can now be very specific about who you're letting into your world. And once you're very specific about who you let into your world, and you don't have you can do this with a human artist as well, but with Angelbaby, who, you know, is from the future and very open to decision making, you can start to have a world where certain Angelbaby NFTs allow you to be part of the decisions they're making on a daily basis. And we all become the artist. We have this tagline at Hume, we are Hume, we are many. And with a Metastar, everybody really can be part of the artist. Hume's really focus on community-powered artists with rich backstories and signature music. And what we see is there's a huge way to really create a world with interconnected NFTs, story, narrative. What we're really excited about with the collective is just this opportunity for like cross-community storytelling, and also just doing it in a way where the storytelling is live.
We're focused on community-powered artists, and right now we're focused on Angelbaby, and there are more artists coming. And the future is not only a community of virtual artists working together, but working with AI, generative music and art, DAO artists, Metaverse experience, eventually even platforms where other people can be a part of the collective themselves. You're able to combine and create worlds that bring in different pieces of culture, IP, and different forms of collaboration in ways that you never have been able to. The opportunities for creative expansion with Web3 music and storytelling is, for me, is the most exciting thing that I've ever been a part of.
Not like them, is that wrong? Knew that I was special all along. I'm weird, I'm different. I wasn't born like you, I was missing. I'm weird, I'm different.
We're just a company that is looking to make the world's smartest avatars and the world around them. And we've partnered with some amazing people like the team at Beyond Games, Anton and Jess down in Wellington. And we're creating environments for your avatar to live in that you can own, metaverse environments, which is really awesome. The accidental advantage of New Zealand in this and that for 30 years, thanks to Weta Workshop and Peter Jackson, we've been cultivating these amazing 3D artists and concept designers and product designers. So these are the Burrows, and about a month ago, we released this concept art from this just a genius, Emery Watson's his name. He worked with the Beyond Games guys, who are another group of geniuses. And so you've got this incredible space that is being dropped for FLUF owners.
But just to give you a sense of the aesthetic of the space, this real kind of mix between organic underground space and technology, that the FLUF World characters are really fun space for them to exist in, and lots of little bits of interactivity in that space. Plenty of room to put assets in there. You may even see some little hints of what some FLUFs might get in their side of their burrows. Don't forget, every trait counts. You might notice there's little statues. You could see there maybe a little bit of mycelium growing perhaps in the underground growing environment. In the background, a bit of graffiti art on the walls. So there's lots of little clues in here as to what's going to be going on inside of the burrows.
So phase one is, the ability for you to walk around in your burrow. Phase two is includes multiplayer, meaning that you can invite other people in, multiple FLUFs in there. And that could be a meetup, it could be a social event with music. You can drop music in there. There's a whole bunch of surprises I want to talk to you about in that sense. There are two layers of burrows, the High Roller and the Snoop Dogg, that have nightclubs in them. Now, the way that Unreal works with scaling and instances, you could have 100 people come to your nightclub, you could ticket them. So it could cost like a micropayment of $5 to come to your party on a Saturday night. And you could hire Dylan Francis to play that party as a party bear. And because of Unreal scaling, you could instance that 10,000 times and have 1 million people in your burrow that you have promoted if you wanted to. Eventually, you'll be able to charge people to come to your poker game. You'll be able to play poker. They'll be able to bring their own assets into your burrow. So it might be that you've got a little poker room and people bring their own chairs, and someone brings, the Game of Thrones chair because they want to intimidate you, and people are coming in as different avatars. We're working for these environments in FLUF World to be fully portable and integrated. And instead of it just being an empty kind of space, it'll have a thingy. We've got these thingy characters that may have created art for me overnight. It might have a party bear that's been remixing tracks or finding cool samples or stems, because the party bears are really music focused for me. I'll get an alert on my phone saying, hey, come down into your burrow. Your party bear's finished the track it's been working on.
The burrow, that's where you live and that's where you party. And then there's going to be this whole above ground world that will be kind of the main metaverse layer.
Yeah, so the really exciting thing is that now that we know that we need to build these really cool immersive spaces that can deal with the high quality FLUF content, we want to be able to have the opportunity for you to go and socialize outside of your burrow, your personal home space, with other FLUFs in a similar kind of environment. So as we kind of go through and get the burrows out there, that'll be like the first stage of growing into a FLUF world, a genuine FLUF world. And so in FLUF World, there'll be these public spaces to start off with that will emerge into world spaces. As we build that out, you'll be able to acquire land in the public spaces. And in fact, in buying a borough, you'll actually get land with that depending on which borough you choose to purchase during that period. So you'll be able to start buying some of the land in the public world spaces, which I think is a massively exciting thing for the FLUF World.
Mycelium, so that thing growing in the greenhouse in the background.
Yeah, so as we all know, mycelium is really important to the lore of FLUF World and to the underground spaces. And you can think of mycelium as kind of the energy that permeates through the world space and into the FLUF World universe. And so we want to make sure that you can get a supply of mycelium. And so think of land and these objects in your burrows as perhaps being yield generating. So if you own the asset, you might find that you start to earn a yield in mycelium, which then can be used to power other experiences in the game. So we want to kind of blend this metaverse space with these DeFi experiences and really generate true value for FLUF holders.
I'm actually working on a manifesto in terms of how do we deal with all of this sort of stuff around making sure that we build a very open and diverse metaverse that empowers everyone who jumps in there, that it doesn't price out the laggards by overly rewarding the early adopters, that we deal with things like security, both of identity and information, but also finance, in a way that's very easy for anyone to jump in, because everyone's racing to build the metaverse. It's not going to be built by one person or one company. Everyone will have a say in it, but let's set some standards in place globally that at least we can all work to. There's so many different elements around community management, moderation as well. How do we deal with moderation in the metaverse? It won't be a blanket approach. There will be worlds that are very family friendly, and there'll be worlds that are, war zones. And also not neglecting the real world in the process. This shouldn't be, oh, we've fucked up the real world, so we're just going to create a digital world to all go live in, like the Matrix. It's how can we utilize this in a way that actually gives back to the real world?
The Metaverse Manifesto. As we've seen with this industry, everyone's rushing towards the same goal, but they're all often taking different paths. So we saw this as an incredible opportunity to basically put out a call to arms for the industry as a whole to come together, sit down and just work towards this kind of shared dream that we have. How can we ensure that the metaverse that we're building is fair, is open, it brings out the best in us. Let's create this digital paradise that we can use to unlock people's creativity. We've already had, I think, 500 plus people sign up to take the pledge. People from Samsung, Tesla, Amazon, some of the leading companies in the industry. And we really want to take a collaborative approach here and co-create this thing together. That's really what this is all about. It's co-creation.
I think it's important that, when you look at the metaverse, you can't limit people's creativity. You can't limit the expansion of it. There obviously needs to be some standards and rules set in place of, okay, how do we deal with things like moderation and security in the metaverse? Because that's a really big thing that we see lots of scams in the space at the moment. But also, how do we ensure that it's really a place that people can bring their own content to? Long term, there's going to be tools for people to create their own digital identity when it comes to joining the metaverse. But to have this flexibility to kind of adapt or evolve or create a digital persona that suits you as an individual is really powerful. And that's where you see people really start to come out of their shells and kind of discover who they are as a person.
I'm David Schwartz. I'm the CTO at Ripple, co-creator of the XRP Ledger. I'm here with Aaron McDonald. So tell us what you guys are doing and why it's so interesting.
So we've been working for a while now to figure out what is the ideal user experience for bringing people into Web3. Our teams have been building at different layers. In the protocol layer, come up with some interesting inventions there that we've worked on and had patented. In the application layer around wallet user experience, and more recently around the content space as funnels for users to come into Web3. All those little bits of stuff that people have been working on for the last 5 years, we tied together recently in a white paper called Enter the Futureverse.
The Futureverse. It is the monster white paper drop that FLUF, Aaron McDonald, all the crazy mofos who are connected to that ecosystem, they drop something big.
And the Futureverse as a concept is about bringing together what we'd call like the open metaverse operating system. So these different components that are necessary to drive safe user adoption for more users, an onboarding experience that feels familiar to them, and world-leading content experiences to draw them in. And there's a whole host of things below the surface on that protocol layer that we've been working on, particularly the Root network.
The Root network, a decentralized blockchain network optimized for user experience and onboarding. Yes, it's a layer one. They're building a goddamn layer one.
This blew my mind when I saw it.
The root network is a new approach to building out a layer one. So we stepped back from what's faster and cheaper and said, what's the best user experience? And the team put together a bunch of protocols that we think deliver a superior user experience and built those into the core of the network architecture.
Yeah, because we started on this journey thinking about user onboarding for the masses that's optimized for where the metaverse is headed in terms of layer one blockchain optimized for metaverse experiences. Identity, payments, NFT assets, all of the user onboarding, user safety features that you would expect from like a traditional application is what the team's been working hard on. And really now is their moment to kind of start to shine.
And so the root network is the underlying substrate for protocols to sit on, for the assets to exist inside of, for the data to exist inside of, that delivers that user experience that we want to deliver in the Futureverse whitepaper. If we really care about Web3 and the open metaverse, then we have to care about user experience because that's what's going to bring everyone in. And if we don't think bringing everyone in is important, then we don't really believe in Web3 and the open metaverse. It's all very well having, decentralized technologies that, 5% of the world use, but that's not going to change anything. Yeah, and it's just a different frame of thinking. So if you start with a technology focus to solving a problem, what you find is that in order to deliver the user experience, you have to undo a lot of the things you thought you had right in the protocol and infrastructure side of things to deliver that. So while it's important and it's good that that stuff has happened and we're building on the shoulders of giants who have paved this path, it was important to take that step back and say, okay, well, let's look at this with fresh eyes and think about the problem in a different frame. That's a phase we have to go through for Web3, and it's okay that we have protocol wars now, but I think if we're really determined to this success in an internet scale, we have to think about each other as working together to drive that outcome as opposed to being adversaries. If we have that frame of mind and we're all trying to approach the same outcome, but albeit from different points of view, then I think that we'd move a lot faster and we'd scare fewer people off in coming into the space. They take that to the next level. If you think about like the metaverse standards, that's even earlier. If we're honest with ourselves, that the reality is that doesn't exist today in Web3 and getting there is very hard. And so there's a whole body of work going on in that side of things as well in terms of standards development that the Futureverse is involved with to get the content layer user experience as well as that infrastructure layer of user experience to work.
I'm very excited about this because I think that is indeed at the core, and you need to start building the open metaverse infrastructure bottom up. Top-down construction does not work. Everybody's focusing on top-down construction. I have this PFP collection. I'm going to make it composable, and then maybe I'm going to make it compatible with other stuff. What you end up with, again, is silos and huge chains of single points of failure where you need a team per project to maintain this and build these cross-collection integrations. Doesn't work. But if you start with a good building block that others can create magic on top of, that is the really exciting part. And if that's part of the protocol, and it looks like it is here, and I'm super excited about it, and I really want to play with it, then yes, this is it. This is where we go.
So I have to ask you, what do you like about the XRP ledger?
When I first started looking into it, I was quite surprised because there's quite a bit of rhetoric out there. And if you only investigate things at that level, you might be misled in terms of what's actually being built. I think it was a very clever solution to solving the energy problem and performance problem of proof of work. And the architecture of it, in some ways, if you implement it as the protocol was designed, is possibly more decentralized than proof of stake because users get to choose the validators that they want to listen to. And so you can have this kind of layers of decentralization within the network that aren't available in other architectures, which I thought was really interesting.
The XRP ledger has been around since 2012 or so, so it has kind of stood the test of time in a way that some of the newer technologies haven't. And I think shaking out problems, especially if you're going to trust it with very, very high value applications that are attack and theft targets,
And so we have to think about the internet of blockchains. There are different protocols that suit different kinds of use cases, and that's cool. And let's try and make them work together as much as we possibly can.
And can we keep them interoperable?
We have to keep them interoperable. I mean, that's one of the things about the root network, right? So out of the box, we're going to be interoperable with Ethereum and XRPL, and we're going to do that in an interesting way. And the architecture allows us to expand that to other networks as well.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, there are people who want NFTs on Ethereum, and there are people who don't want to spend $10 for a transaction.
Or they've just chosen their tribe as XRP, and that's cool. Well, let's give them superpowers too, so they can do all sorts of cool things. That's the opportunity here, is to say people have chosen that tribe for whatever reason. You don't agree with them, cool, that's fine. You chose a different thing, that's also fine. The goal is to give both those users the ability to have a great user experience, interact with the open metaverse, to give those assets that they hold on each one of those things superpowers, so they can come and do more things and be more useful. It's only a win-win.
So there's advantages and disadvantages of both, depending on what you're trying to do. I would say if it's a very high value thing with a small number, or you need very complex functionality, Ethereum might be a better choice. If you want ease of transfer, high speed, low cost, and you don't need it to trigger complex behavior in a smart contract, then the XRP ledger is probably a better choice.
Yeah, I think that's a fair summary, and I'm going to split it down the middle by saying the root network is trying to do the best of both. So we were taking the approach that there is an NFT runtime in the network that has that standardization of functions and features, and if you use that, you'll be able to transact with the NFT ecosystem that's built on top of that in a uniform way. And we have smart contracts, and so if you want to do something super special that was not like intended in the original design of the runtime, you can add that functionality on top of it. I think the other thing both XRPL and Root Network have as a benefit is standardization. You know, when we talk about this next layer of interoperability at the metaverse layer, the ERC process produces a level of standardization, which is useful, but it doesn't go far enough, I think, in order to have the asset layer as a standardized thing for applications. And so I think we have the opportunity with these more kind of defined network behaviors to increase the ability for interoperability to happen, because the data structures are similar every time.
What was your reaction to this, Bruno?
Oh, well, I'm pretty deep in the substrate world, so this makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, it was the thing that made me sit up and take notice. I was like, I know a limited amount about the way .sama functions, but I do know from having talked to people like yourself that if you're trying to build up something that can really last and really scale, it is very well equipped to do exactly that. But I was just shocked. This isn't a layer 2, it's a layer 1. Decentralization is a real thing, and it requires a lot of nodes, it requires a lot of validators, it requires a lot of buy-in. Finding enough validators to really get the network running and functioning properly, that's a big old task, and it sends out a big statement. It really, really does.
Well, in this case, yes, they will have the validator problem, but somehow I don't think that's going to be much of an issue, because we finally have an L1 that has probably more utility than the top 50 coins out there combined.
Ouch, Bruno. So, the thing is, I kind of agree with you. As well. Like, they sneaked all of this tech in under the cover of storytelling and NFTs and good time partying and all this other stuff. And underneath it all, they were building out proper, genuine infrastructure. It's so intriguing, the whole thing.
There's a big difference between something that I own that I can put in my pocket and it goes wherever I go and is only subject to the rules that I impose on it, and say my ownership of a piece of real estate.
And that kind of notion of putting it in your pocket, I guess, is what Web3 is about, right? And so how do we create better systems for more people to engage with that in a safer way? And that's the mission of the Futureverse.
Something that started out as being a simple plan has developed into something much, much better. But I also believe that since September, we as a community, we've grown. Our purpose is far more defined, thanks to you, and our culture is far more clear. We've also gathered a lot more communities around FLUF, merging and creating the industry's first real gravity point for independent projects to collaborate on a true interoperable metaverse. We welcomed Alton State Machine, Thingies, Party Bears, Burrows, Seekers, Drug Receipts, and more on their way. Each is a functional mission, and a lot of brains and wonderful community members have joined us. We've come together because we've got shared beliefs. As a collective, we're passionate about building genuine technology and innovating. We're engaged in smart conversations, we have fun, and we celebrate creatives. We're very proud of this. We are the most inclusive Web3 community on planet Earth.
Obviously, sustainability has been, one of the core pillars of everything we do. So everything to date has been offset by 200% via carbon click. So we're actually carbon regenerative. Utilize this in a way that actually gives back to the real world. And that's something that we're doing. 10% of our profits go back to supporting primarily kind of conservation and environmental charities. Sustainable Coastlines, we did a $100,000 donation to them.
One thing that I think kind of bonds not just the four of us together, but actually the whole extended FLUF family is that we're all passionate about purpose. We looked at sustainable coastlines. We looked at an Auckland City mission donation that started at $10,000. By the end of the week, it was at $100,000. And then we, through a telethon, had 7 Snoop Burrows up for auctions.
Alex Taylor, CEO, FLUF World, what is our final total? 221.1477 ether, which equates to $1,021,757.
Well, we're showing that with Web3, you can mobilize a community in seconds and make that donation. And we saw that with our Auckland City mission donation, $1 million in 24 hours from 7 people. And then Ukraine, just under $500,000 in 48 hours with a simple scene drop. And it's just truly, again, it's not us. Community plus content plus easy access to that commerce, and you wrap purpose around that, guys, funnel the money. It's next level. We couldn't have imagined that today we would be announcing the formation of the Futureverse Foundation, a collaboration between Alexandra Grant, Keanu Reeves, Non-Fungible Labs, and our broader ecosystem. A foundation that we hope will aim to invest in underrepresented artists, creatives, and communities in order to build a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive space in both the metaverse and in the real world. The amazing Alexandra Grant, one half of that incredibly inspirational couple, and she joins us right now from Paris. Alexandra.
What's wonderful is I think this intersection between world building in Web3 spaces and looking at creatives who might not have access yet to those spaces and thinking, how can we have an exchange between artists and creatives who are doing things in physical spaces and doing things online. And that when we're talking about these creative exchanges, we're also talking about economic building, building economies for people to have the experience of self-empowerment through the selling and exchange, display, conversations about their creative ideas. It sort of blew my mind. Okay, here we have a question of people who they're undocumented. They literally don't have papers, so of course they can't open a bank account. So how do we have, clear transactions? How do we support people who are between states, quite literally? And so coming into that world of Web3, understanding the issues of social, international inequity, and that this is an opportunity to be inclusive at a scale that happened last time there was a massive technology shift. It's not just selling like a poster with a blockchain attached to it. We're really talking about investing in, giving the opportunity, extending the invitation to bring people into a new possible economy and exchanges that have with them more dignity. And I think for me, it's such an important question. I mean, we were talking about our backgrounds, for example, and I was saying, in the arts, women are so under-supported. And even though the optics are that women are supported, the numbers speak otherwise. And so it's really looking at how do we use this moment of structural change to reimagine the possibility for truly supporting humans across all the divides that exist, whether it's gender or religion or race or nationality, wealth, these gaps that allow, we want to be more inclusive of voices. And we also want to connect back to the sense of philanthropy, to reimagine what that would be. But how do we engage without taking their voice, artists from different communities? So this idea, right, of not just giving someone an opportunity with strings attached, but saying, we want you to have your own voice, your own dignity, and what kind of platform. So it is how can we help, but it's also listening, having that opportunity to listen.
There's another great announcement, Alexandra. So we had 421 unclaimed thingies, and Non-Fungible Labs is also going to donate those to the foundation.
Wow.
Quite amazing. And those spiders, and they're AI artists themselves, but they also generate and harvest and hunt out mycelium. This wonderful cluster of spiders will be generating revenue that will be able to allocate to amazing artists around the world. One of the most amazing things when you have a name like Alexander Grant or Keanu Reeves on board is the world is your oyster in terms of what we can do. Rahila, you can talk a little bit about this next step. Tell us about Code to Inspire.
Was founded by this incredible young woman that's Afghan and has a computer science degree named Farashta. They've just done tremendous work over the past few years. They helped her turn it into a registered nonprofit organization in the United States, since the Taliban have sadly taken over Afghanistan. And because of that, when the banking system basically virtually collapsed when the Taliban came over, they've still been able to pay their staff and function. They suddenly got a bunch of support from the NFT community to keep going and make this transition into providing the young women laptops and the ability to kind of transition to online learning and work from home, and then even expand to different parts of Afghanistan. So continue online education where not only are the young women coding now, but they're also learning graphic design skills and coding in Web3 and Solidity and things like that.
But it is our next commitment. We're committing to Code to Inspire. It's an incredible project. It's one of about 10 projects that we have in the barrel right now, 3 or 4 immediate projects around the world helping amazing people that are doing incredible things in Web3 thanks to Futureverse Foundation.
I don't think people realize that if you buy a thingy, a certain percentage goes to the foundation.
So 30% of secondary sales for Thingies go to the foundation, army of Thingies that the foundation now owns, and all of the mycelium generation from those will go towards helping fuel these projects, and you'll be able to pledge your Thingy along with them, with Keanu and Alexandra and this team, to build like an army of mycelium generating Thingies doing good for the world.
A big thing is just education. Put programs in place where we can empower these individuals, no matter who they are, no matter where they're from, no matter how they identify, give them tools to play with 3D modeling and animating, and that's kind of where all of this is leading. So how do we get people excited about that? Being a creative, up until recently, you're either 1 or 2% who really make it, or you're a struggling artist your entire life. And now we're in this position where the artist is the empowered one. If people are empowered and have the tools to be able to share their own story with the world from their own perspective, you really get a much more humanizing and real experience, and it allows you to connect with these people from all over the world in a way that you would never get through traditional media.
That's one of the cool things we've seen in FLUF World is the community helping each other to learn those tools and to start to play with animation of the characters and making content. Like the number of people who've never done anything like that before, and just because they have the 3D assets, they're becoming content creators and learning how to use these tools. It's kind of like this really interesting phenomenon I don't think you see anywhere else, where you give people tools and the freedom to be creative with those things and commercialize those things. And those communities just come together and help each other to learn how to become creative people. It's such a fascinating thing to watch, and one of the most special things I think about how this metaverse is evolving. I think it's really important. We were quite deliberate actually in the community building phase of FLUF World to create, like in the Discord spaces, for example, a safe space for new people to enter and for different kinds of people to enter. And it was a deliberate thing we had to do because the natural evolution of something that takes off in the space tends to attract a crypto bro, and that not necessarily creates a friendly environment for this middle-aged woman who's bought her first NFT and doesn't understand the memes and isn't in the culture and kind of doesn't know how to respond to that environment. We were really kind of deliberate about making sure that our community was a safe space for people to come in and learn and understand and bring new people in. And we have so many people who've come in and said, this is the first NFT I've ever bought. Felt like it was something that I could engage with. You can now have these super vibrant, viable micro communities that represent a niche of culture, a niche of personality, a niche of viewpoint of the world. Those can be viable. They can exist in their own right now, and they can be organized around this narrow affinity or kind of identity in the metaverse. Like, it's not like it used to be where to be relevant, you had to be part of something that had scale. You can do stuff that's relevant at micro scale. And that's how you get diversity, by having the ability to do stuff at micro scale that does identify with those individual cultural groups and at the same time exist in a big space together. You get that balance between inclusion because of micro communities and togetherness because of open spaces. I think that's the really powerful thing about NFTs. That changes the game because it makes it viable to do that where it wasn't before.
You're a musician with 5,000 fans. You just need to engage 5,000 fans and you charge $200 for 5 years worth of content. You've just made $1 million with 5,000 fans. You're going to need to stream about 1 billion songs and sell merch and play concerts to do that as a musician in the current market.
In FLUF World, we're always trying to give value back to the community. And if you're building a good Web3 company, that's what your aim is. How do I sum up, the economy of Web3? And what it does is it takes our tendencies for being greedy capitalists and forces us to come up with ways to include community and distribute wealth in order to make ourselves wealthy. You want to be successful and you're greedy about your own success, but in order to achieve that, you absolutely have to give back to your community and build value for the community. It's this very different economy, which is non-zero sum. If we're together building value, then we're all going to do better as a result of that. And so how can I give back to my community, create value for them, and then that keeps the flywheel going?
I think that's the really cool thing about this space is that crowdsourced content, is that you can do a lot of high quality small things and they make up something that's greater than the sum of its parts.
When you look at our FLUF World community, well, they're adding to it because it's fun, but they're adding to it because they know that everything that they do to it will improve the value of the community and their investment. Now that is an unbeatable way to build a community. It's no longer broadcast. It's collaborative. It's collaborative creation. Everyone in our community owns the IP to their fluff, as in they could go and build a TV show with it tomorrow. And all it would be doing is adding to the value of the ecosystem so everybody wins.
Thanks very much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and maybe you consider watching one of my other videos. Bunnies up!